You're welcome to PHI 203, Introduction to Ethics, Study Session 1. What is ethics? In this study session, we will explore the meaning of ethics as an aspect of philosophy. We will also discuss the subdivisions of ethics and the views of early philosophers on ethics. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Define and use correctly the term ethics. 2. Discuss the views of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle on ethics. The subject matter of ethics. Whenever we are worried or concerned with providing a plausible reason rather than just any basis for our moral decisions, we are doing ethics, although in a rudimentary way. Put differently, therefore, ethics is the branch of philosophy that studies the nature, origin, structure, and justification of moral conduct. Ethics or moral philosophy concerns systematic, critical, conscious, and rigorous reflections on the moral values that people live by. Issues and events of everyday life require that people make moral decisions and pass moral judgments on people's actions, as well as their own conduct from time to time. For example, it is often said that E was not supposed to behave that way. It is wrong to tell lie. It is good to help the needy. Abortion is evil, and so on. When we try to justify our preference for these and other rules that steer the way or manner that people behave, we are doing an ethics of some sort. Although that is not all we mean by ethics. As human beings, we cannot ignore the issue of morality because we cannot but live in societies. Peaceful and harmonious coexistence, however, demands that our actions are guarded by some codes of conduct which are not necessarily coercive. Those codes of conduct are what we refer to as morality. The subject matter of ethics is morality, and it is in this respect that it is different from other main branches of philosophy like epistemology, metaphysics, and logic. Ethics, however, like other branches of philosophy, employs the tools of philosophy like conceptual analysis, that is, an explanation of the idea, comparative analysis, that is, a comparison of different and similar ideas, and critical analysis, that is, an evaluation of the idea at hand to study the origin, nature, types, structures, principles of judgment, and the justification of the codes of conduct that guide our moral decisions and judgments. Hence, while ethics differs from other main branches of philosophy in its subject matter, it is similar to them in terms of the methods of inquiry which it uses. On the other hand, it is very important to study the nature of morality because people can easily become emotional about the issue of morality to the tragic extent of maiming or killing those they consider immoral. An example is the various instances of massacre in the northern part of the country in recent time. Basically, ethics can be divided into three main branches. The three branches are metaethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. However, Recent studies of ethics adopt some other perspective to the study of the subject. Among the more recent views of ethics, we have professional ethics, business ethics, environmental ethics, psychological approach to ethics, and so on. Generally, ethics involves a critical evaluation of the standards of morality that we hold. Ethics condemns standards that are life-threatening or when they endanger or make difficult human well-being or human existence. On the other hand, ethics encourages those actions or codes of conduct that promote virtues of patriotism, fairness, honesty, kindness, and other virtues which uphold human well-being. In a bid to understand ethics, which is our subject matter in the whole of this course, properly, it is important to see what some of the past philosophers have said about what is morally right and what is morally wrong. Different philosophers for ages have viewed ethics in different ways. Therefore, we will take a look at some of such philosophers in order to have better understanding of what ethics really is. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle on ethics. Socrates was an ancient philosopher who lived in the city of Athens around 469 to 399 BC. He has the reputation of bringing philosophy down to the earth from heaven. The reason for this is partly that other philosophers that lived before Socrates were only concerned with the nature of the physical world or the universe. Socrates was the first philosopher to have concerned himself with the question of living a good life. Socrates lived at a time when a group of philosophers known as the Sophists were teaching the Athenian youths certain things which did not promote the cause of morality. Socrates came on board at this time and helped to correct the wrong teachings of the Sophists. Socrates claimed that all he knew was that he knew nothing, but that, like his mother, he was a midwife who could help people give birth to the knowledge in them. He did this through a method known as the dialectic method, by which he asked questions until he helped his respondents arrive at the true knowledge. Plato was also another ancient philosopher. He was a younger contemporary as well as the disciple of Socrates. Since Socrates left no writing, and since Plato, in all his writings known as Plato's Dialogues, used Socrates as a spokesman, it is difficult to actually know where Socrates' ideas end and where Plato's begin. In view of the foregoing, it is difficult to separate the ethical ideas of Socrates and Plato. Both Socrates and Plato hold that there exists an affinity between self-knowledge and virtue, or the good life. Hence, there is a popular saying of Socrates that man, know thyself. For the two philosophers, therefore, it is impossible to be knowledgeable and still do wrong at the same time. In other words, both Socrates and Plato are of the opinion that at the basis of every form of wrongdoing is ignorance. The opinion of Socrates and Plato that knowledge leads to virtue is also closely related to the theory of morality known as eudaimonism. According to eudaimonism, which is from the Greek word eudaimonia, which means happiness, a good action is that which brings happiness. Going by this idea, Socrates and Plato are often of the opinion that only a virtuous person can be truly happy. It is important, however, to point out that contrary to the position of both Socrates and Plato, vice does not always result from ignorance. Put differently, one can easily criticize Socrates and Plato's ethical idea by pointing out that there are so many people who know that what they do is wrong and yet still go ahead to perform such an action. Does it mean that a murderer does not know that it is wrong to kill, even when he himself does not want to die? The answer of Socrates and Plato to this, going by their second idea, is that if a wrongdoer knew that by doing wrong he would not be truly happy, he would not do wrong. In essence, Socrates and Plato see good moral conduct or a good action in terms of an action that stems from knowledge or self-realization and is measured in terms of true happiness. Socrates displayed an example of what he believed in on so many occasions in his life. In the first place, as a soldier, he exhibited bravery and courage. Also, he showed tenacity and commitment in rigorous thinking, which enabled him to attain such a level of importance in philosophy. Lastly, when he was advised to escape from Athens, when he was about to be executed for the offense of impiety and inciting the youth against the Athenian society of his times, Socrates refused to do so because that was clearly against his philosophy. Aristotle was also another ancient philosopher. He was a younger contemporary and a pupil of Plato in his school known as the Academy. However, many of his ideas are distinct from Plato's, and his ethics is one of such important distinct ideas. Aristotle's renowned work on ethics is known as the Nicomachean Ethics. This work was named after Nicomachus, who was Aristotle's father, because of the influence of medicine, which was his father's profession, and under which Aristotle was brought up, and which is evident in the ethical idea discussed by Aristotle. Aristotle agrees with his master, Plato, that a life of virtue brings happiness. Happiness, in Aristotle's view, is that which is sought as an end in itself and not as a means to another end. For him, happiness is the ultimate good for man. It is that towards which all other intermediate ends are directed. However, to become a person of virtue, Aristotle propounded his theory of the golden mean. Aristotle's aim in his work on the golden mean is to work out his idea of moral virtue or excellence of character. Excellence of character, for Aristotle, is a choice which lies in a mean. Aristotle explains that of emotions, feelings, and actions. There are two extremes, which are both bad and evil. On the one hand is excess, and on the other hand is defect or deficiency, while somewhere between the two lies the mean. The other two are vices, while only the mean is a virtue. Aristotle gives various examples of emotions and actions in relation to their excesses, defects, and the mean. An example of this is confidence. According to him, rashness or foolhardiness is the excess, cowardice is the defect, while courage is the mean. For another form of action, prodigality is in the excess, meanness is a defect, and generosity is the mean. Aristotle also links his moral philosophy to his metaphysical idea of potentiality and actuality, when he posits that although man is potentially virtuous, he does not automatically become virtuous. Rather, man actually becomes virtuous by his constant choice of virtuous acts, which over time makes it become his habit. This therefore means that if one constantly chooses the mean of every action and emotion, one is moving towards the state of being virtuous. Lastly, it is important to note that Aristotle does not commend the same mean for everyone. Just like one eats in proportion to one's size and the nature of work one does to stay healthy, it is important to determine the mean of an action going by the peculiarities of the action. In Aristotle's view, this, although is not discovered through some hard and fast mathematical rules, yet it is knowable all the same. For Aristotle, therefore, we should, as individuals, choose the mean relative to us. Study session summary. In this study session, you learned that ethics is the aspect of philosophy which studies morality. It attempts to mull over the reason behind the actions we consider morally good and reasons why we hold some actions to be morally bad. Ethics does this by making use of the methods of inquiry which are employed in philosophy. We noted the three main branches of ethics, which are metaethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. We have now come to the end of study session 1. Thank you for listening.